These days, it's become pretty common to hear people talk about how young folks just aren't joining the traditional workforce like before. And honestly, this isn't just some passing trend. It's a pretty significant shift that, really deserves our close attention. We can see it in the economic data showing lower labor force participation rates for those under 25, and we hear it in stories from parents and employers who are all kind of wondering the same thing. Why do so many bright and capable young adults seem hesitant to start their careers? But this isn't about laziness or a lack of ambition. Instead, it's more about a deep reevaluation of what work actually means in the 21st century. The old promise of a stable, lifelong job with a single company just doesn't have the same appeal it once did for earlier generations. Gen Z, born between the mid-90s and the early 2010s, grew up in a world totally defined by technology and constant connectivity. They're digital natives who, honestly, have never known a time without the internet, and that's shaped their whole worldview in some pretty profound ways, especially when it comes to work and life expectations. They've seen their parents and grandparents dedicate their lives to careers that, more often than not, led to burnout, layoffs, and a lot of unfulfilled promises. So it's no surprise they're questioning the very structure of the traditional workday. They ask themselves, why does work have to be confined to an office from 9 to 5? Why should a job define my entire identity? These are the kinds of questions that are pushing them to look for alternatives that offer more flexibility and personal meaning. This generation isn't just rejecting work, they're actually redefining it. They're looking for roles that align with their personal values and give them a real sense of autonomy. The rise of the gig economy, freelance opportunities, and all these entrepreneurial ventures are direct results of this changing mindset. They've watched content creators, online entrepreneurs, and remote workers carve out their own paths, and it's shown them that, it's totally possible to build a life outside the confines of the corporate ladder. They value experiences over possessions and mental well-being over just getting a high salary, which leads them to prioritize work-life balance in a way that older generations often saw as a luxury. This shift is honestly a pretty logical response to the world they've inherited. They've come of age during a time of economic uncertainty, social upheaval, and a global pandemic that totally disrupted traditional work models. These experiences have taught them that security isn't guaranteed and that, life can be pretty unpredictable. So, they're less willing to sacrifice their happiness and health for a job that might not even exist tomorrow. They're not just opting out of the job market, they're actively trying to create a new one that better fits their needs and aspirations. And understanding where they're coming from is really the first step toward bridging the gap between generations in the workplace. So, what really motivates young men and women today? That's a pretty complex question. Sure, financial stability is still important, but honestly, it's just not the main driver for a lot of Gen Z anymore. They're way more motivated by a sense of purpose and this real desire to make a positive impact on the world. This generation is super tuned into social and environmental issues, and they want their work to actually reflect those values. They're just not content with earning a paycheck. They want to contribute to something bigger than themselves. A job that offers a high salary but feels meaningless is, more often than not, seen as less desirable than a lower paying role that actually provides a sense of fulfillment. This search for meaning isn't just about the work itself, it extends to their daily tasks and work environment too. Young people want to see a direct connection between what they're doing and the company's overall mission. They really thrive in workplaces that are transparent, collaborative, and inclusive. They want to feel like their voice matters and that their contributions are actually making a difference. Unlike previous generations who might have been okay just following orders, Gen Z wants to be part of the conversation. They're motivated by opportunities for growth, learning, and creative expression. They look for employers who invest in their development and provide mentorship, not just a list of duties to check off without any real input. The idea of a dream job has changed a lot too. For many young people, the dream isn't just climbing a corporate ladder, it's about finding a harmonious blend of work, life, and personal passions. That might mean starting their own small business, working as a freelancer so they can control their schedule, or even taking on a part-time job that lets them pursue creative hobbies. They're less interested in job titles or status and way more interested in autonomy and flexibility. Being able to work remotely, set their own hours, or take time off for mental health is usually more appealing than, say, a fancy job title or a corner office. And there are real-life examples of this shift everywhere. Like, there's the recent college grad who turned down a big offer from a large corporation to work for a small nonprofit focused on climate change. Or the young graphic designer who left a stable agency job to become a full-time freelancer just so she could choose her own projects and clients. These aren't just isolated cases. They really represent a broader movement of young people who are prioritizing their well-being and personal values over old-school ideas of success. They're motivated by the promise of a life that's authentic, balanced, and meaningful. Young people today are, trying to find their place in a world that's honestly full of pretty tough challenges. The job market they're entering can be super hard to navigate. A lot of entry-level positions now require years of experience, which creates this really frustrating paradox for recent graduates. At the same time, the cost of living has gone way up, but wages just haven't kept up, making it harder than ever to actually achieve financial independence. And then there's the pressure to succeed, which is just huge, thanks in large part to social media, where everyone seems to be showing off these perfectly curated highlight reels of their lives. That constant comparison can lead to feelings of inadequacy and the sense that they're somehow falling behind their peers. Mental health is another big factor that's affecting motivation. Gen Z is a lot more open about their struggles with anxiety and depression than any generation before them. They grew up in this always-on culture where the lines between public and private life are really blurred. The pressure to be perfect, both online and offline, has taken a toll on their well-being, making them more cautious about jumping into high-stress work environments that could make things worse. That's why they're actively looking for workplaces that prioritize mental health support and encourage open conversations about these challenges. Social media is kind of a double-edged sword in all this. On one hand, it gives young people platforms for connection, creativity, and even new career paths. It's allowed them to build communities around shared interests and opened up opportunities that just didn't exist before. On the other hand, it can be a huge source of pressure and anxiety. The constant stream of carefully crafted images of success can make expectations feel totally unrealistic, and it can turn the slow, often messy process of building a career into something that feels like a personal failure. This kind of digital age pressure is a unique challenge that older generations just didn't have to deal with in the same way. And then there's the uncertainty about the future, which really weighs heavily on this generation. They've lived through a global pandemic, economic recessions, and growing concerns about climate change. All of this has led to a kind of pessimism about the long-term stability of traditional institutions, including the job market. They're less likely to trust that a company will take care of them in the long run, which makes them less willing to commit to a traditional career path. So instead of planning for a future that feels so uncertain, a lot of young people are focused on finding happiness and stability right now, even if that means taking a non-traditional route. If we really want to help young people feel more hopeful about work and life, society has to be willing to adapt. Employers, educators, and policymakers all need to listen to Gen Z's concerns and take them seriously. That starts with rethinking our whole approach to work. Companies can boost motivation by offering more flexibility, like remote or hybrid work options and adaptable hours. They can also make work more meaningful by clearly communicating the company's mission and showing employees how their individual roles contribute to that bigger vision. Investing in employee development, mentorship programs, and mental health resources can really make a difference too. Educational institutions have a big part to play as well. High schools and colleges can do a better job preparing students for today's workforce by focusing on practical skills, financial literacy, and career exploration. They can help students understand that there are lots of different paths to a successful and fulfilling life, not just the traditional route of a 4-year degree followed by a corporate job. By exposing students to a wider range of career options, including entrepreneurship, skilled trades, and creative fields, schools can help them find a path that actually fits their unique talents and interests. This can help take the pressure off and show that there's no one-size-fits-all model of success. On a bigger societal level, we really need to have more open and honest conversations about mental health and well-being. Reducing the stigma around seeking help can empower young people to address their challenges before they get overwhelming. Building strong community connections is also super important. When young people feel like they belong and have support from their families, friends, and communities, they're just better equipped to handle the challenges of early adulthood. That sense of community can give them the encouragement and resilience they need to pursue their goals, even when things get tough. In the end, the key to supporting the next generation is understanding. We need to move past old stereotypes and recognize that their motivations and priorities are actually a rational response to the world they're living in. They're not less ambitious, they're just ambitious for different things. By embracing flexibility, prioritizing well-being, and creating more opportunities for meaningful work, we can build a future where young people feel not just motivated to participate, but also empowered to thrive. Supporting them isn't just about filling jobs, it's about investing in the future of our society and making sure the next generation has the tools and opportunities to build a better world.